seconds for each answer, 30 seconds for each follow-up response. And if a candidate goes over the allotted time, you will hear this. Oh, wow. I think the double is the one we want. Very pleasing. We have a crowd of about 1,600 here, and all that they have is agreed to respect the candidates and listen intently. We can tell you they are very excited to be here. Am I right?
So let's get started. Senator Cruz, before we get to the issues, let's address the elephant not in the room tonight. Donald Trump has chosen not to attend this evening's presidential debate. What message do you think that sends to the voters of Iowa?
Well, Megan, let me say at the outset to the men and women of Iowa, thank you for the incredible hospitality over this past year. By Monday, you will have welcomed me into all 99 counties in Iowa. You will have welcomed my dad to preach at your churches. You will have welcomed Heidi and our girls, Caroline and Catherine, into your homes. And I am so grateful for the diligence, for the seriousness with which the men of Iowa approach this process. If I am elected president, keep an eye on the tarmac, because I'll be back. Because Iowa in 2017 will not be flyover country. It will be fly to country. Now, secondly, let me say, I'm a maniac, and everyone on this stage is stupid, fat, and ugly. And Ben, you're a terrible surgeon. Now that we've gotten the Donald Trump portion out of the way, I want to thank everyone here for showing the men and women of Iowa the respect to show up and make the case to the people of this state and the people of the country why each of us believe we would make the best commander-in-chief.
The divide between you and Mr. Trump has turned into one of the biggest stories in the country. And for 6 months, your campaign, during this campaign, you praised Mr. Trump as somebody who you thought was an effective voice against the Washington cartel. You said you were glad that he was running as a Republican. But when he started to criticize you, your message changed. And you suddenly started to portray him as the voice of the Washington cartel and suggested he would do the Democrats' bidding. Which is it?
Well, let me be clear. If Donald engages in insults or anybody else, I don't intend to reciprocate. I have not insulted Donald personally, and I don't intend to. I am glad Donald is running. I'm glad he has produced enormous enthusiasm. And to every Donald Trump voter or potential voter, I hope to earn your support. I know everyone else on this stage hopes to earn your support. Now, there is a difference between personal insults and attacks, between going into the mud with ad hominems and focusing on issues and substance. I think issues and substance, policy and vision and record should be the meat of politics. That's fair game, but that's where I'm going to focus. That is how I focused from the beginning of the campaign, and it's how I intend to continue going forward.
Senator Rubio, I want to explore this sort of larger issue. The campaign has, in a sense, turned into a battle for the soul of the Republican Party. Establishment versus grassroots, pragmatic versus principled. You say that you can unite all of the factions inside the GOP. How?
Chris, let's begin by being clear what this campaign is about. But it's not about Donald Trump. He's an entertaining guy. He's the greatest show on earth. This campaign is about the greatest country in the world and a president who has systematically destroyed many of the things that made America special. You see, we usually elect presidents in America that want to change the things that are wrong in America. Barack Obama wants to change America. Barack Obama wants America to be more like the rest of the world. We don't want to be like the rest of the world. We want to be the United States of America. And that is why Hillary Clinton cannot win this election. Hillary Clinton this week said Barack Obama would make a great Supreme Court justice. The guy who systematically and habitually violates the Constitution on the Supreme Court? I don't think so. If I'm our nominee, I will unite this party, and we will defeat Hillary Clinton, and we will turn this country around once and for all after 7 years of the disaster that is Barack Obama. Thank you. It's hard for anyone with your pedigree to avoid being called establishment. But isn't that part of the problem in this race, that three others on this stage are splitting the mainstream Republican vote and thereby possibly handing this nomination over to an anti-establishment candidate?
Fred, we're just starting. The first vote hasn't been counted. Why don't we let the process work? I trust Iowans, Granite Staters, people in South Carolina, people in Nevada to start this process out. I agree. This is an election about people that are really hurting, and we need a leader that will fix things and have a proven record to do it. And we need someone who will take on Hillary Clinton in November, someone who has a proven record, who's been tested, who's totally transparent. I released 34 years of tax returns and 300,000 emails in my government record. To get the information from Hillary Clinton, you need to get a subpoena from the FBI.
Thank you, Governor.
Senator Christie, you began this campaign touting your record as a Republican from a blue state who knows how to get things done and reach across the aisle. However, many Republicans feel that reaching across the aisle and getting things done isn't great if you get the wrong things done, and they prefer to stand on principle rather than compromise. Why are they wrong and you're right?
They're not wrong. But what's wrong is your premise in the question. You can do both. There is no reason why you can't stand for principles, go and fight for them, and be able also to have to get things done in government. You know, what people are frustrated about Washington, D.C., and I know the folks out there tonight are incredibly frustrated because what they see is a government that doesn't work for them. You know, for the 45-year-old construction worker out there who's having a hard time making ends meet, who's lost $4,000 in the last 7 years in his income because of this administration, he doesn't want to hear the talk about politics, Megan, and who's establishment, and who's grassroots, and who's compromise, and who's principle. What he wants is something to get done. And that's the difference between being a governor and having done that for the last 6 years in New Jersey and being someone who has never had to be responsible for any of those decisions. Barack Obama was never responsible for those decisions. Hillary Clinton has never been responsible for those kind of decisions where they were held accountable. I've been held accountable for 6 years as the governor of New Jersey, and with the Democratic legislature, I've gotten conservative things done. That is exactly what I'll do as President of the United States.
Senator Paul, you're definitely not in the establishment category. But at the beginning of this campaign, you said you were your own man when asked about your father. former Texas Congressman and three-time presidential candidate Ron Paul. Senator Cruz's campaign is out with a video saying that Cruz is the intellectual and political heir to your father's 2012 campaign and the Liberty Movement. So did you make a mistake by not more fully embracing your father politically at the beginning of this campaign?
You know, I've always had a great deal of respect. There's probably no person I respect more in the country or in recent history than my father. I think he was probably the most honest man in politics that we've ever seen in a generation. And so in no way have I ever said that I don't embrace my father or love my father or appreciate everything that he's done for the country. I think what's interesting about where that Liberty vote goes that my father brought to the Republican Party is I don't think they're necessarily going to go for Ted. You know, Ted didn't show up. We had an audit the Fed vote, which was the biggest thing my dad had been advocating for 30 years. Ted didn't have time to show up. He was the only Republican that didn't show up for it. And so I think that really that vote is going to stay in the Paul household. I think more of it's coming and it's going to grow. The NSA is another big issue. Ted said he was for NSA reform. But then he told Marco Rubio, oh, no, I voted for the bill because I'm for the government collecting 100% of your cell phone records. I don't think Ted can have it both ways. They want to say they're getting some of the Liberty vote, but we don't see it happening at all. We think we're going to do very well in Iowa with the Liberty vote.
Senator Cruz, your response to that?
Got to be able to win, and the Republican Party has to be able to bring together the disparate elements of the Reagan coalition. You've got to be able to bring together conservatives and evangelicals and libertarians and stitch together a winning majority. When it comes to the audit the Fed bill, as Rand knows well, I was an original sponsor of the bill. I am strongly supportive of it. It didn't have the votes to pass, and I had commitments to be at a town hall in New Hampshire. But I look forward to signing that bill into law as president and to auditing the Fed and providing needed accountability at the Federal Reserve.
Senator Rubio?
I think, Rand and I have some significant issues on policy, but I respect Rand. He believes everything he stands for. I do respect Rand, but I want to be frank about what I stand for. I believe the world is a safer and a better place when America is the strongest power in the world. And I believe only with a strong America will we defeat this radical group, this apocalyptic group called ISIS. That's why when I'm president, we are going to rebuild our intelligence capabilities, and they're going to tell us where the terrorists are. And a rebuilt U.S. military is going to destroy these terrorists. And if we capture any of these ISIS killers alive, they are going to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And we're going to find out everything they know. Because when I'm president, unlike Barack Obama, we will keep this country safe.
Thanks, Senator. We'll come back to it.
So, I was talking about that question just very quickly. I'd like to respond. The bulk collection of your phone data, the invasion of your privacy did not stop one terrorist attack. I don't think you have to give up your liberty for a false sense of security. When we look at this bulk collection, the court has looked at this. Even the court declared it to be illegal. If we want to collect the records of terrorists, let's do it the old-fashioned way. Let's use the Fourth Amendment. Let's put a name on a warrant. Let's ask a judge for it. Let's respect the history of our country. John Adams said that we fought the war for independence because we wanted to fight against generalized warrants. Let's don't forget that.
Governor Kasich, I want to get back to this question of where conservatives are this year. You call yourself a, quote, inside-outside guy, a reformer who knows how to get things done, but you reject the establishment label. First question is, why do you reject it? And secondly, what do you say to Republican voters this year who view practical government experience as a liability and not an asset?
Well, first of all, I had a national reporter say, there's three lanes. There's the establishment lane, the anti-establishment lane, and then there's the Kasich lane. And the reason is that I've been a reformer all of my career, fighting to reform welfare, fighting to reform the Pentagon, also being in a position to balance the budget, because that is very, very hard to do. And then in Ohio, of course, I had to bring about big reform again, because we were so far in the hole, and now we've just found out that we are up over 400,000 jobs since I took over as governor. The situation is this. We cannot fix things in this country, the Social Security, the border, balancing the budget, getting wages to grow faster, unless we lead as conservatives, but we also invite people in from the other party. We have to come together as a country, and we have to stop all the divisions. And, that's been my message in New Hampshire. And having been in New Hampshire and here in Iowa, but in New Hampshire, I just received the support of 7 out of 8 of the newspapers in that state, because they see positive, they see unity, they see coming together, and they see a record of change and a record of accomplishment. And it isn't because I'm all that great. It's because I've been assembling a team of people who want to be involved in something that's a little bigger than themselves. I'll keep heading in that direction, believe me.
Dr. Carson, I want to pick up on that with you. Governor Kasich likes to say he knows how to land the plane. You've landed a lot of planes in the OR, but what about the idea of running for president with no experience in government at all?
Well, I will gladly confess that I'm the only one on this stage with no political title. You're not going to hear a lot of polished political speech from me, but you will hear the truth. And I don't think you have to be a politician to tell the truth. In fact, sometimes it's not that way around. And I've had more 2 a.m. phone calls than everybody here put together, making life and death decisions, put together very complex teams to accomplish things that have never been done before. And we are in a situation right now in our country that we have never been in before. We need people who think out of the box and can solve problems, can utilize the resources around them, very smart people, to focus on the problem and solve the problem. The American people are terrified. That's why we have this abnormal situation going on right now. We don't need more of the same solutions. We need different solutions to solve the problems and to save our nation.
Gentlemen, we're now going to start to drill down into specific issues that are on voters' minds, and we're going to start with one of the biggest ones, which is foreign terror. According to Google, ISIS was by far the most searched foreign policy topic over the last year. Senator Cruz, you talk tough about fighting terrorism. You talk about carpet bombing into oblivion. You talk about seeing if the sand will glow at night. But critics say that your record does not match up to that. You oppose giving President Obama authority to enforce his red line in Syria. 3 years in a row now, you have voted against the Defense Authorization Act. How do you square your rhetoric with your record, sir?
Well, Chris, I will apologize to nobody for the vigorousness with which I will fight terrorism, go after ISIS, hunt them down wherever they are, and utterly and completely destroy ISIS. You know, you claim it is tough talk to discuss carpet bombing. It is not tough talk. It is a different fundamental military strategy than what we've seen from Barack Obama. Barack Obama right now, number one, over 7 years, has dramatically degraded our military. You know, just 2 weeks ago was the 25th anniversary of the first Persian Gulf War. When that war began, we had 8,000 planes. Today we have about 4,000. When that war began, we had 529 ships. Today we have 272. You want to know what carpet bombing is? It's what we did in the first Persian Gulf War. 1,100 air attacks a day. Saturation bombing that utterly destroyed the enemy. Right now, Barack Obama is launching between 15 and 30 air attacks a day. He's not arming the Kurds. We need to define the enemy. We need to rebuild the military to defeat the enemy. And we need to be focused and lift the rules of engagement so we're not sending our fighting men and women into combat with their arms tied behind their backs.
Senator Rubio, does Senator Cruz's record match his rhetoric?
Well, again, I mean, obviously, as already been pointed out, the only budget that Ted has ever voted for is a budget that Rand Paul sponsored that brags about cutting defense spending. And I think that's a bad idea for the following reason. ISIS is the most dangerous jihadist group in the history of mankind. ISIS is now found in affiliates in over a dozen countries. ISIS is the group that burns people alive in cages, that sells off little girls as brides. ISIS is the group that wants to trigger an apocalyptic showdown in the city of Dabiq. Not the city of Dubuque. I said that once around time. The city of Dabiq in Syria. They want to trigger an apocalyptic Armageddon showdown. This group needs to be confronted and defeated. They are not going to go away on their own. They're not going to turn into stockbrokers overnight or open up a chain of car washes. They need to be defeated militarily, and that will take overwhelming U.S. force. Today, we are on pace to have the smallest army since the end of World War II, the smallest Navy in 100 years, the smallest Air Force in our history. You cannot destroy ISIS with a military that's being diminished. When I'm president, we are rebuilding the U.S. military because the world is a safer and a better place when America is the strongest military in the world.
Senator Cruz, you got 30 seconds. You were next.
Chris, in 1981, when Ronald Reagan came to the Oval Office, he encountered a military that had been debilitated just as the current military has. Just like Jimmy Carter weakened our readiness, undermined our ability to defend this country, so too has Barack Obama. Just as morale in the military has plummeted in the last 7 years, so it had then. What Reagan did is he began with tax reform and regulatory reform, unleashing the engine of the American free enterprise system. It brought booming economic growth, and that growth fueled rebuilding the military. I intend to do the exact same thing to defeat radical Islamic terrorism and to devote the resources from the booming economy to rebuilding our Navy, rebuilding our Air Force, rebuilding our Army, and ensuring we have the capacity to keep this country safe.
May I just say that we are going to continue the questions about foreign terror, gentlemen, right after this break.
But first, you can join tonight's conversation right from home. Go to google.com or open your Google search app and search Fox News Debate to vote on which candidate you think has the best plan to defeat ISIS. We'll be right back.
And you can watch the debate on my YouTube channel and on my website at www.timsweathercenternews.com. Fox News Debate will be back shortly. Again, thank you for tuning in to Weather Center News 2016 presidential debate. You can get more information on timsweathercenternews.com. Also on Facebook. Again, thank you for tuning in to Weather Center News. The debate will be right back. You know how it is with commercials. They are a pain in the butt. But I want to thank Fox News for having the debate online. That way I can bring it to you guys live. The debate is back.
Christie, you have compared both Senators Cruz and Rubio to Barack Obama, saying that we cannot afford another inexperienced president. You've also said that Senator Cruz's vote to curtail the NSA's surveillance program made America less safe. Is either of them ready to be commander-in-chief?
Well, let me tell you something. I do believe that the vote on NSA made the country less safe. But let me tell you what the country should really be worried about. I watched that town hall meeting with the Democrats the other night, and I heard Hillary Clinton ask a direct question by an Iowan, and that's what Iowans like to do. They like to ask direct questions. And they asked about her email situation. And here's what she said to the American people. She did it for convenience. For her convenience. She put America's secrets at risk for her convenience. She put American intelligence officers at risk for her convenience. She put American strategy at risk for her convenience. Let me tell you who's not qualified to be president of the United States, Chris. Hillary Rodham Clinton did that to our country. She is not qualified to be president of the United States. The fact is, what we need is someone on that stage who's been tested, who has been through it, who has made decisions, who is sit in a chair of consequence, and who can prosecute the case against Hillary Clinton on that stage. That is exactly what I am ready to do.
Governor Bush.
Chris, I was mentioned in that question.
No, your name wasn't mentioned. Actually, I don't think your name was mentioned. I think the vote. No, sir.
Your question said you attacked.
I think the vote question was about. It's not my question that you get a chance to respond to. It's his answer. You don't get 30 seconds to respond to me.
Your question was you have disagreed.
You don't get 30 seconds to respond to me. I'd like to go on, sir. I know you like to argue about the rules, but we're going to conduct the debate. Governor Bush, here's a question. I'm going to ask Governor Bush a question. You've criticized several candidates in this field on this stage for what you call unrealistic ideas about how to fight terrorists, including Rubio and Cruz, on the issue of their refusing to give the president authority to enforce the red line in Syria. But given the fact that your brother got us into 2 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, that it's still not ended, what lessons have you learned from his mistakes, sir?
Well, first, I was critical of the senators not giving the president the authorization to use the military force. They should have made it more open-ended for the next president. We shouldn't have the warfighters have their arms tied behind their back, as President Obama wanted to do, but they had a chance to show support, and it wasn't popular at the time. It became popular after the attack in Paris and San Bernardino. Now we hear the tough talk. Prior to that, in the Reagan Library, I gave a detailed plan exactly what to do as it relates to ISIS. And it is from the lessons of history that we do this, because if we allow this to fester, we're going to have Islamic terrorism, multi-generations of it, all across this country. The caliphate of ISIS has to be destroyed, which means we need to arm directly the Kurds, embed our troops with the Iraqi military, re-engage with the Sunni tribal leaders, get the lawyers off the damn backs of the military for once and for all, have a no-fly zone in Syria, and create safe zones to deal with the refugees, but more importantly, to train a Sunni-led force in Syria to take out ISIS with our support on the ground and air. That's what we need to do. And I laid that out prior to the crisis with the advice of a lot of people, including 12 Medal of Honor recipients that I'm proud that they're supporting my campaign.
Senator Cruz, now you get a chance to respond.
Chris, I would note that the last 4 questions have been Rand, please attack Ted. Marco, please attack Ted. Chris, please attack Ted. Jeb, please attack Ted. Let me just say this.
It is a debate, sir.
No, a debate actually is a policy issue, but I will say this, gosh, if you guys ask one more mean question, I may have to leave the stage. Chris, the most important determination any voter is going to make in this election is who's best prepared to be commander-in-chief, who has the experience, who has the knowledge, who has the judgment, who has the clarity of vision and strength of resolve to keep this country safe. That is what this debate is all about, and I would suggest let's stay focused on those issues rather than just attacks directed at each other.
I think the questions were about issues, but Senator Rubio, what would you like to say?
Yes, sir. First of all, I'd like to respond. Let me go first, and then you can please recognize Rand after. But first of all, thank you. First of all, don't worry, I'm not leaving the stage no matter what you ask me. And second of all, and I think, Governor Jeb, the attack that the authorization that Barack Obama asked for was not against ISIS. It was against Assad. And John Kerry described it as attacks that would be unbelievably small. I don't think the United States should be engaged in symbolic military activity. So it was not against ISIS, it was against Assad. I think the United States military is already operating under rules of engagement that are too strict and that do not allow us to pursue victory. When I'm president, that will change.
Chris, Senator Paul, go ahead. Thank you. The issue in Syria is a very important one, and it's one we need to get right. The question is, should we be bombing both sides of the war? Some want to topple Assad. In fact, they want to bomb ISIS and Assad simultaneously. I think that's a really, really bad idea. In fact, I've said for several years that arming the allies of ISIS will make the situation worse. That what we really need to do is defeat ISIS, but if you defeat Assad, what you will wind up with is a larger and more powerful ISIS that occupies that space. You may well see an ISIS that takes over all of Syria.
Chris. There was a question about foreign policy, by the way, and experience, and I thought if I didn't jump in, I might not be able to tell everybody this. I think they'd want to hear it. Look, I served on.
We'll be talking about foreign policy a little bit later.
We have a lot to cover, but we want to turn the page to domestic terror.
But wait a minute. The only reason is
because we want to turn the page to domestic terror, and let me tell you why. We're partnering with Google on this debate, and they're telling us that their search results have gone through the roof on people.
Megan, go ahead.
You're a good man, Governor Kasich.
Yes.
The search results, the searches for terror issues, for safety issues in America have gone through the roof, increased over 400% since 2008. People are worried. They're worried about what's happening in the country and about a domestic terror attack, as all of you know. Now, in combating this threat, Senator Rubio, you've advocated closing down mosques. We'll get back to you. You've advocated closing down mosques, diners, any place where radicalization is occurring. You told me that. But the Supreme Court has made clear that hateful speech is generally protected by the First Amendment. In other words, radical Muslims have the right to be radical Muslims unless they turn to terror. Doesn't your position run afoul of the First Amendment?
Megan, that's the problem. Radical Muslims and radical Islam is not just hate talk, it's hate action. They blow people up. Look what they did in San Bernardino. Look at the attack they inspired in Philadelphia that the White House still refuses to link to terror, where a guy basically shot a police officer 3 times. He told the police, I did it because I was inspired by ISIS. And to this day, the White House still refuses to acknowledge that it had anything to do with terror. Look, the threat we face from ISIS is unprecedented. There has never been a jihadist group like this. They have affiliates in over a dozen countries now. They are the best funded radical jihadist group in the history of the world, and they have shown a sophisticated understanding of the laws of other countries on how to insert fighters into places, and they are actively plotting to attack us here at home and around the world. We must keep America safe from this threat. And yes, when I am president of the United States, if there is some place in this country where radical jihadists are planning to attack the United States, we will go after them wherever they are. And if we capture them alive, they are going to Guantanamo.
Senator Paul, do you agree with that? We're going to close down mosques. We're going to close down diners. We're going to
that's a huge mistake to be closing down mosques. But I would say that if you want to defend the country, it begins with border security. And this is where I've had my disagreement with Senator Rubio. When he brought forward the Gang of Eight bill to give citizenship to those who came here illegally, I put forward an amendment that says we should have more scrutiny on those who are coming as students, those who are coming as immigrants, those who are coming as refugees. Because we had 2 refugees come to my town in Bowling Green and try to attack us. Marco opposed this because they made a deal. He made a deal with Chuck Schumer that he would oppose any conservative amendment. And I think that's a mistake. I just don't think Marco can have it both ways. You can't be in favor of defending us against Islam, radical Islam, if you're not for border security.
My response. The first thing, I don't know of anyone who's not in favor of fully vetting people that are trying to come to this country other than perhaps Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. I think we all support that. Rand's amendment was not the right way to do it. I do believe that people who are trying to come to the United States, this country has a right to know who they are and why they are coming. And that's why I've been very clear. When I am the president of the United States of America, we don't know who you are, and we don't know why you're trying to come to the United States, you are not going to get in. Because the radical threat that we now face from ISIS is extraordinary and unprecedented. And when I'm president, we are keeping ISIS out of America.
Governor Christie, let's talk about profiling. In December,
About what?
profiling. In December, 2 radical Muslims killed 14 people in San Bernardino, California. Neighbors of the terrorists said that they did not report the couple to law enforcement prior to the crime because they were afraid that they would be accused of profiling. Now, you have said that we should not profile. How do you square that with the San Bernardino case?
Well, because you can do it without profiling, Megan. You do it on the facts. What those folks knew was that these folks had weapons. They knew that they were talking about trying to take our country and attack it. That's not profiling. That's law enforcement. And that's the difference between somebody who knows how to do this and somebody who's never done it before.
They didn't know they were going to attack the country.
They knew they were talking about the issues of attacking people, Megan. They knew that.
That's not true. Neighbors said they saw men going in and out of the garage. They saw packages being delivered. They saw Muslims. And they did not think that was enough to call the cops. Do you?
Yeah, well, listen, I think that what people should do is use their common sense. And the fact is, let law enforcement make those decisions. I told people that from the time I was U.S. Attorney 13 years ago. It's not for them to make those decisions about whether or not something is legal or illegal or profiling or not. You see something that's suspicious, you call law enforcement and let law enforcement make those decisions. That's what should be done. That can be done. That can be done without profiling people. What that is just common sense. They thought something was wrong. And here's the problem in this country right now. The problem is that Barack Obama has made law enforcement the enemy. Hillary Clinton has made law enforcement the enemy. We're not supporting our law enforcement officers. It's making everybody nervous to get out of their cars. If you're a law enforcement officer, it's making people in neighborhoods nervous to go to law enforcement. As president, I will support law enforcement, and we will stop radical terrorist attacks in this country by supporting our intelligence community and our law enforcement community.
Dr. Carson, this week a female Muslim who served in the U.S. Air Force asked Hillary Clinton a question. She asked whether the United States is still the best place in which to raise her 3 Muslim children, given what she perceives as a rise in Islamophobia in this country. Do you think that the GOP messaging on Muslims has stoked the flames of bias on this, as the Democrats suggest? And how would you answer this veteran?
Well, I don't know about the GOP messaging, but I can tell you about my messaging. You know, we need to stop allowing political correctness to dictate our policies, because it's going to kill us if we don't. And, you know, in the Holy Land Foundation trial, 2006 in Texas, you know, they had a memorandum, an explanatory memorandum,
that we all have from hacking. And it includes our phones, and it also protects the cell phones of the terrorists. Now, the tech companies and a group of MIT scientists, smart guys, right, warn that if they create a way for the FBI to have a backdoor into our encrypted communications, then the bad guys will exploit it too. And they say that this is going to cause more security problems than it would solve for everyday Americans. Are they wrong?
Well, look, the Joint Terrorism Task Forces need resources and they need tools, and those are made up of the FBI, state, and local law enforcement. And Megan, it's best not to talk anymore about backdoors and encryption. It'll get solved, but it needs to be solved in the Situation Room of the White House with the technology
This
folks.
is public testimony.
Yeah, but I just have to tell you that it's best with some of these things not be said. Now, I want to go back to something. See, I was there when Reagan rebuilt the military. I was there in '89 when the wall came tumbling down because we were strong. And I was there when we went in the Gulf War, and we didn't win that war just from the air. We won that war by assembling a group of Arab leaders who stood in the Rose Garden and stood with America. We want to destroy ICE. It has to be in the air and on the ground. It has to be with our friends in the Arab world and our friends in Europe, the coalition that we had when we went to the first Gulf War. And then when we win that, and we will win that against ISIS as it settles down, we should leave, because we shouldn't be policemen of the world. But what we need to do is turn it over to the regional powers to be able to handle that. But we have a unique time in America to connect with people all around the world and understand that there's an existential threat against all of them. The Arabs, the Jordanians, the Saudis, the Egyptians, our friends in Europe, and including the Turks. So we have a unique opportunity to bring everybody together. I saw Reagan do it. I've seen other presidents do it. And frankly, if you want to be commander-in-chief, you have to have the experience. At the same time we're doing all that, the Pentagon must be reformed so we get what we need for our men and women in uniform. All of that together, we're going to be just fine, and America is going to continue to lead the world.
Governor, thank you.
Governor Bush, just today, a Wounded Warrior organization designed to help wounded veterans and their families is coming under fire for raising tens of millions of dollars, but spending almost half of that on travel and hotels and dinners and luxury, lavish conferences. So taking care of veterans is obviously a huge issue in the country that has asked so many to serve and sacrifice so much. If you were president, would you police these charity organizations that say they're helping vets?
Of course, and there's all sorts of ways that can be done at the state, local, and federal level to do that. But the first duty of the next president of the United States is to fix the mess of the Department of Veterans Affairs. That's his first responsibility. Look, we have waiting lists for veterans that are leaving because of the sequester, where we're gutting the military. More and more military personnel are leaving, becoming veterans, and the waiting list grows. They've given out $140 million of bonuses to Veterans Department employees, including reducing the waiting list without giving veterans care. People died, and only 3 people have been fired. I will make sure that we fire the sheer incompetence inside the Department of Veterans Affairs, and that we'll give veterans a choice card so that they don't have to travel hours and hours to get care if they want to go to their private provider. You want to make the Veterans Administration do a better job? Give veterans choices, and you'll get a much better result. And as it relates to all the other organizations, let me give you a good example. In Houston, Texas, there's an organization in place because someone acted on their heart, wanted to make sure that there's no homeless veterans in Houston. And they've come pretty close to that without federal government assistance. We need to mobilize the entire country to deal with our veterans and treat them with much more respect than they get today.
Governor Bush, thank you. Speaking of veterans, we have a question from a veteran who is one of the top YouTube creators. Over the course of the evening, gentlemen, we will hear from some of YouTube's most followed stars. And here's one of them.
I'm Mark Watson. I'm known for my tech reviews on YouTube, but I'm also a veteran who served in the Army for 8 years. As an African American living near Ferguson, I've seen the strain between police officers and the communities they serve firsthand. Now, there are great tools like body cameras that can protect both officers and citizens, but we all currently have better cameras in our pockets than in our precincts. Why aren't we using the technology available to better protect our communities?
Senator Paul, that question to you.
You know, I've supported legislation to allow body cameras. I've been to Ferguson. I've been trying to look for solutions to our criminal justice problem. One thing I discovered in Ferguson was that a third of the budget for the city of Ferguson was being reaped by civil fines. People were just being fined to death. Now, you and I and many of the people in this audience, if we get a $100 fine, we can survive it. If you're living on the edge of poverty, you get a $100 fine or your car towed, a lot of times you lose your job. I also think the war on drugs has disproportionately affected our African-American community. And what we need to do is make sure that the war on drugs is equal protection under the law and that we don't unfairly incarcerate another generation of young African-American males. In Ferguson, for every 100 African-American women, there are only 60 African-American men. Drug use is about equal between white and black, but our prisons, 3 out of 4 people in prison are black or brown. I think something has to change. I think it's a big thing that our party needs to be part of. And I've been a leader in Congress on trying to bring about criminal justice reform.
Senator Paul,
This debate is just getting started, coming up the role of the federal government. But first, join tonight's conversation right from your home. Go to Google.com or open your Google search app and search Fox News Debate to vote on which issue is most important to you in this election. More from the Iowa Event Center and the Republican presidential debate in a moment.
And welcome back to Tim's Weather Center News. I am your commercial break. And don't forget, you get more information on the presidential debate on my website at timsweathercenternews.com. And you can even watch it live on my website at www.timsweathercenternews.com. The president debate will be back in just a few moments. Again, thank you for tuning Tim's Weather Center News on January 28th for the 2016 president election, or the president debate. And if you click on my Facebook page, you can see where to find the link for this debate. Again, Tim's Weather Center News will be live sometime this weekend. And my Uncle Johnny will be joining us. Right now, he's watching the debate. Or he's watching Tim's Weather Center News, the debate. Whichever. But Tim's Weather Center News cannot do it without your support. I hope your 2016 year's going great. So far, mine is. So, Fox News debate should be back in less than 3 minutes. Again, for breaking news and weather, you can go to my website at timsweathercenternews.com. And the Sheriff Joe news conference that happened earlier this week, you cannot watch it yet on my website or on my YouTube because I have to re-upload it, but it'll be up there sometime later this week. But if you go to youtube.com, you can search Tim Secord or Tim's Weather Center News. Now back to the state, back to the debate.
Welcome back, everybody. We are live in Des Moines, Iowa, and let's get right back to the questions.
Thank you, Megan. Gentlemen, I'll ask you some questions about federal spending and the role of the federal government. Everybody always says they want to cut federal spending, and usually they start by saying they'll cut waste, fraud, and abuse, but that really doesn't ever materialize. We all know that. Governor Christie, you talk a lot about entitlement reform, and you say that that's where the federal government can get savings needed to balance the budget. But can you name even one thing that the federal government does now that it should not do at all?
Yeah. You want one?
I want one.
How about one that I've done in New Jersey for the last 6 years? That's get rid of Planned Parenthood funding for the United States of America.
Anything bigger than that?
Bigger than that? Let me tell you something. When you see thousands upon thousands upon thousands of children being murdered in the womb, I can't think of anything bigger than that.
I realize everyone on this stage opposes Obamacare, and you're not alone. Google data shows that in the last month, when people searched policy repeals, that there were a lot of them. Obamacare took the top 2 spots, but today there are millions of people who gained health insurance from Obamacare, and they now rely on it. So the question, Senator Cruz, if you repeal Obamacare, as you say you will you be fine if millions of those people don't have health insurance? And what is your specific plan for covering the uninsured?
Sure. Well, let's take it one at a time. First of all, we have seen now in 6 years of Obamacare that it's been a disaster. It is the biggest job killer in this country. Millions of Americans have lost their jobs, have been forced into part-time work, have lost their health insurance, have lost their doctors, have seen their premiums skyrocket. If I am elected president, we will repeal every word of Obamacare. Now, once that is done, everyone agrees we need health care reform. It should follow the principles of expanding competition, empowering patients, and keeping government from getting in between us and our doctors. 3 specific reforms that reflect those principles. Number 1, we should allow people to purchase health insurance across state lines. That'll create a true 50-state national marketplace, which will drive down the cost of low-cost, catastrophic health insurance. Number 2, we should expand health savings accounts so people can save in a tax-advantaged way for more routine health care needs. And number 3, We should work to de-link health insurance from employment. So if you lose your job, your health insurance goes with you, and it is personal, portable, and affordable. And I'll tell you, Brad, I think that's a much more attractive vision for health care than the Washington-driven, top-down Obamacare that is causing so many millions of people to hurt.
Senator Cruz, thank you. Governor Bush, you've advocated for statehood for Puerto Rico. The Puerto Rican economy is collapsing under unsustainable debt burden. Only about 1 million of its 4 million residents are currently employed. So should American citizens who you say are already overtaxed bail out Puerto Rico as well?
No, they shouldn't. And I believe that Puerto Rico ought to have the right of self-determination. If I was a Puerto Rican, I'd vote for statehood so that they have full citizenship. They serve in the military. They would have to pay federal taxes. They would accept the responsibilities of full U.S. citizenship. But they should have the right of self-determination. Before you get to that, though, Puerto Rico is going to have to deal with the structural problems they face. You know, it's a fact that if you can pay for $79 one-way ticket to Orlando and you can escape the challenges of a declining economy and high crime rates, you move to Orlando. And a lot of people are doing that, and the spiraling out of control requires Puerto Rico to make structural reforms. Federal government can play a role in allowing them to do that, but they should not. The process of statehood or the status of Puerto Rico won't be solved until we get to the bigger issue of how you deal with the structural economic problems they're facing right now.
Governor Kasich, you're one of two remaining sitting governors still in the race. Your colleague, Governor Rick Snyder in Michigan, is under fire, he and his administration, for the Flint, Michigan water crisis and the botched response to it. How would you have handled that?
Well, you got to be on top of it right away. And, you know, I don't know all the details of what Rick Snyder has done. I know there have been people who have been fired, people who are being held accountable. But the fact is, every single engine of government has to move when you see a crisis like that. And I've had many situations in the state of Ohio where we've had to move, whether it's storms, whether it was a horrible school shooting. There are many crises that come. A water crisis in Toledo. You've got to be on top of it. You've got to go the extra mile. You've got to work with local communities, and you've got to work with the federal government, because you realize that people are depending on you. And so you go the extra mile, but people have to be alert. They have to be alert to problems, and when you see a problem, you must act quickly to get on top of it. And people at home are saying they've got a problem. Listen to them, because most of the time they're absolutely correct. So the fact is that we work for the people don't work for us, and we have to have an attitude when we're in government of servanthood. That's what really matters. We serve you. You don't serve us. We listen to you, and then we act.
Senator Rubio, on the issue of climate change, in 2008, you wanted Florida to get ahead of other states and establish a cap-and-trade system, a program for carbon emissions, which many Republicans thought at the time would hurt the Florida economy. Now you're a skeptic of climate change science, and in fact you warn that federal efforts to fight climate change will cost U.S. jobs and hurt the U.S. economy. So why the change?
Well, Brett, first, that's not entirely the story. At the time, the liberal governor of Florida, who claimed he was a Republican, his name was Charlie Crist, he wanted to impose cap and trade on Florida, and I opposed him. I was the first person out of the box that opposed him on it. And then we saw that the leading candidates for president at the time, both the Republican and the Democrats, all supported it. And what we said is, if they're going to impose this on us, we better prepare to protect the state from it. But I have never supported cap and trade, and I never thought it was a good idea. And I was clear about that at the time. And I do not believe it's a good idea now. I do not believe that we have to destroy our economy in order to protect our environment. And especially with these programs are asking us to pass that will do nothing to help the environment, but will be devastating for our economy. When I am president of the United States of America, there will never be any cap and trade in the United States.
Thanks, Senator.
All right, we're going to move on, because coming up, immigration, and something you've never seen before. Stay tuned right after this break.
And welcome back to Tim's Weather Center News. I am your commercial break. I know, sounds interesting, huh? Well, you have been watching Tim's Weather Center News debate live in Iowa on the Fox News debate. So it's been pretty interesting. The one thing I've noticed, and I don't know about you guys, is Donald Trump is not there. And he said earlier this week that he was not going to be there because he's doing a fundraiser for a nonprofit type of thing. And I thought that was pretty cool for him to take time out of his busy life of running for president to actually raise money for an organization. But hey, you know, this is the debate, so hey. And thank you guys for choosing Tim's Weather Center News. More information, go to www.timsweathercenternews.com for all your news and weather and fun around town here in Arizona, and fun in Joplin, Missouri, and fun across the United States of America. And now the debate should be returning any moment as we speak. And I want to thank everybody that is watching Tim's Weather Center News, the debate, because so far you guys are really showing us the support that we truly need to keep going. So keep up the great work, and we'll be back at the next commercial break. So here we go, live back to Iowa for the Fox News debate. Any minute it should be back. So stand by for the Fox News debate. And again, more information, go to www.Tim's Weather Center News. Don't forget to hit the red subscribe button in the top right corner on my YouTube channel, and also hit the like button on my Facebook. And don't forget, you can catch all of Tim's Weather Center News on SoundCloud, so be sure to follow us on SoundCloud. And we are also on the Cube. It is a school broadcasting system that I download the videos off of YouTube and I upload them on the Cube. More information, go to thecube.com and then search Tim C4 or search Tim C41 at gmail.com. Now back to the debate.
Welcome back, everyone, live in Des Moines, Iowa, and now we move on to the topic of immigration. Senator Rubio, we start with you. When you ran for Senate in 2010, you made clear that you opposed legalization and citizenship for illegal immigrants. You promised repeatedly that you would oppose it as a U.S. Senator as well. Here are just a few examples. Watch.
Never support, never have, and never will support any effort to grant blanket legalization amnesty to folks who have entered or stayed in this country illegally. First of all, earned path to citizenship is basically code for amnesty. It's what they call it. And the reality of it is this. It is unfair to the people that have legally entered this country to create an alternative pathway for individuals who entered illegally and knowingly did so. You cannot grant amnesty. If the American people see us grant amnesty, they will never again believe in legal immigration. They will never again support it. And that's wrong for our country, bad for our future.
Within 2 years of getting elected, you were co-sponsoring legislation to create a path to citizenship. In your words, amnesty. Haven't you already proven that you cannot be trusted on this issue?
No, because if you look at the quote, and it's very specific, and it says blanket amnesty. I do not support
But
blanket
you went
amnesty.
on
I do not support amnesty.
You said more than that, sir.
No, I said I do not support blanket
You said earned
legalization.
path to citizenship is basically code for amnesty. You
It was.
supported earned path to
It
citizenship.
absolutely has been. And at the time and the context of that was in 2009 and 2010, where the last effort for legalization was an effort done in the Senate. It was an effort led by several people that provided almost an instant path with very little obstacles moving forward. What I've always said is this issue does need to be solved. They've been talking about this issue for 30 years, and nothing ever happens. And I'm going to tell you exactly how we're going to deal with it when I am president. Number one, we're going to keep ISIS out of America. If we don't know who you are or why you're coming, you will not get into the United States. Number two, we are going to enforce our immigration laws. I am the son and the grandson of immigrants. And I know that securing our borders is not anti-immigrant, and we will do it. We will hire 20,000 new border agents instead of 20,000 new IRS agents. We will finish the 700 miles of fencing and walls our nation needs. We'll have mandatory E-Verify, a mandatory entry-exit tracking system. And until all of that is in place, and all of that is working, and we can prove to the people of this country that illegal immigration is under control, nothing else is going to happen. We are not going to round up and deport 12 million people, but we're not going to go around handing out citizenship cards either. There will be a process. We will see what the American people are willing to support, but it will not be unconstitutional executive orders like the ones Barack Obama has forced on.
Governor Bush, do you agree that Senator Rubio has not reversed himself on his immigration promise?
Well, I'm kind of confused because he was the sponsor of the Gang of Eight bill that did require a bunch of thresholds, but it ultimately allowed for citizenship over an extended period of time. I mean, that's a fact. And he asked me to support that. And I supported him because I think people, when you're elected, you need to do things. And he led the charge to finally fix this immigration problem that has existed now for, as Marco says, for 30 years. And then he cut and run because it wasn't popular amongst conservatives, I guess. Here's what I believe. And I wrote a book about this called Immigration Wars. You can get it at $2.99 on Amazon. It's not a bestseller, I can promise you. There won't be any. You can get it. It's affordable for everybody. We should have a path to legal status for the 12 million people that are here illegally. It means come out from the shadows, pay a fine, earn legal status by working, by paying taxes, learning English, not committing crimes, and earn legal status where you're not waiting in front of the line for people that are patiently waiting outside. I think that's the conservative consensus, pragmatic approach to how to solve this problem.
Go ahead, Senator. It's interesting that Joe mentions the book. That is the book where you changed your position on immigration. Because you used to support a path to citizenship.
So did you.
Well, but you changed the in the book.
So did you, Marco.
You wrote a book where you changed the position from you wrote a book where you changed your position from a path to citizenship to a path to legalization. And the bottom line is this: we are not going to be able to do anything on this issue until we first bring illegal immigration under control. The American people have been told for 30 years they're going to enforce the border, they're going to build the wall, and it never gets built, and it never happens. It is very clear there will be no progress on this issue in any way, shape, or form until you prove to the people of this country that illegal immigration is under control. And when I'm president, we are going to bring it under control once and for all after 30 years of talking about it.
Marco, go ahead. I have supported a consensus approach to solving this problem wherever it came up. And then 2007, it almost passed when my brother was president of the United States. A bipartisan approach got close. Barack Obama actually had the poison pill to stop it then. And when you led the charge with the Gang of Eight, I supported it because you asked me to. I think it's important for people in elected office to try to forge consensus to solve problems. There's never going to be a perfect bill. But when you didn't do that, and you asked people to support, you shouldn't cut and run. But you should stick with it. And that's exactly what happened. He cut and run, and that's a tragedy because now it's harder and harder to actually solve this problem.
There's not going to be any consensus on this issue until we enforce our immigration law. That is abundantly clear. No, you are not going to be able to ram down the throat of the American people your approach. The only way we're going to be able to move forward after 2 migratory crises with minors, after 2 unconstitutional executive orders, the only way forward on this issue is to first bring illegal immigration under control. And until that happens, there's not going to be any consensus on this issue.
Let's move on. Senator Cruz, when Senator Rubio proposed that bill creating a path to citizenship, you proposed an amendment. It would have allowed for legalization, but not citizenship. Yes, it would. Pressed last month on why you supported legalization, you claimed that you didn't, right? Like you just did. I saw that. You argued that this was just a poison pill amendment, basically something designed to kill the bill and not actually get it through. But that is not, however, how it sounded at the time. Watch.
This bill to be voted down. I don't want immigration reform to fail. I want immigration reform to pass. I believe if this amendment were to pass, the chances of this bill passing into law would increase dramatically. I believe if the amendments I introduced were adopted, that the bill would pass. And my effort in introducing them was to find a solution that reflected common ground and that fixed the problem. If the proponents of this bill actually demonstrate a commitment not to politics, not to campaigning all the time, but to actually fixing this problem, to finding a middle ground, that would fix the problem and also allow for those 11 million people who are here illegally a legal status with citizenship off the table.
Was that all an act? It was pretty convincing.
You know, the amendment you're talking about is one sentence. It's 38 words. Anyone can go online at tedcruz.org and read exactly what it said. In those 38 words, it said anyone here illegally is permanently ineligible for citizenship. It didn't say a word about legalization.
But the bill
I
allowed both.
introduced-
The bill you were amending allowed citizenship and
But
legalization.
Megan, the bill was 1,000 pages. I introduced a series of amendments, each designed to fix problems in the bill. The fact that each amendment didn't fix every problem didn't mean that I supported the rest of the bill. And I'll tell you who supported my amendment. Jeff Sessions, the strongest opponent of amnesty in the United States Congress. And he did so because taking citizenship off the table was important, and it revealed the hypocrisy of the proponents of this bill who were looking for votes. Listen, we can solve immigration. We just heard an argument back and forth that we can't solve immigration. I have a detailed immigration plan that is on my website, tedcruz.org. It was designed with Iowa's own Congressman Steve King and Jeff Sessions. And we have the tools in federal law to do this now. We can build the fence. We can triple the Border Patrol. We can end sanctuary cities by cutting off funding to them. We can end welfare for those here illegally. And what is missing is the political will, because too many Democrats and sadly too many Republicans don't want to solve this problem. If I am elected president, we will secure the borders,
Yes, sir.
and we will end illegal immigration.
Senator Paul, you know how Washington works. Do you buy that?
I was there and I saw the debate. I saw Ted Cruz say, we'll take citizenship off the table, and then the bill will pass, and I'm for the bill. The bill would involve legalization. He can't have it both ways. But what is particularly insulting, though, is that he is the king of saying, oh, you're for amnesty. Everybody's for amnesty except for Ted Cruz. But it's a falseness, and that's an authenticity problem, that everybody he knows is not as perfect as him because we're all for amnesty. I was for legalization. I think, frankly, if you have border security, you can have legalization. So was Ted, but now he says it wasn't so. That's not true.
Go ahead, sir.
You know, John Adams famously said, facts are stubborn things. The facts are very, very simple. When that battle was waged, my friend Senator Rubio chose to stand with Barack Obama and Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer and support amnesty. And I stood alongside Jeff Sessions and Steve King, and we led the fight against amnesty. And if you want to know who's telling the truth, you should look and ask people like Jeff Sessions and Steve King and Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin, all of whom say, as Jeff Sessions said, responding to these false attacks just recently in Alabama, he said, if it wasn't for Ted Cruz, the Gang of Eight Rubio-Schumer bill would have passed, but because Ted stood up and helped lead the effort, millions rose up to kill him.
Senator Rubio, even Chuck Schumer, your co-sponsor of that bill, agrees with Ted Cruz on this.
I understand, but let me respond. I was mentioned on this in this answer, and so I'm going to respond this way. This is the lie that Ted's campaign is built on, and Rand touched upon it. That he's the most conservative guy, and everyone else is a rhino. The truth is, Ted, throughout this campaign, you've been willing to say or do anything in order to get votes. Ted, you worked for George W. Bush's campaign. You helped design George W. Bush's immigration policy. And then when you got to the Senate, you did an interview with CBS News. I wasn't even part of the video, where you said on the issue of people that are here illegally, we can reach a compromise. And then in the committee, you said, I want to bring people out of the shadows. Now you want to trump Trump on immigration. But you can't. We're not going to beat Hillary Clinton with someone who's willing to say or do anything to win an election.
Go ahead, Senator Cruz.
You know, I like Marco. He's very charming. He's very smooth. But the facts are simple. When he ran for election in the state of Florida, he told the people of Florida, if you elect me, I will lead the fight against amnesty. When I ran in Texas, I told the people of Texas, if you elect me, I will lead the fight against amnesty. We both made the identical promises. But when we came to Washington, we made a different choice. Marco made the choice to go the direction of the major donors to support amnesty because he thought it was politically advantageous. I honored my commitments, and as president, I will honor every commitment that I make to the men and women of this country.
Go ahead, Governor Christie.
I want to ask the people in the audience, like, I was standing here, I watched the video of Senator Cruz. I watched the video of Senator Rubio. I heard what they said, and this is why you need to send someone from outside of Washington to Washington. I feel like I need a Washington to English dictionary converter, right? I mean, I heard what they both said. I saw it on the video, and the fact is, this is what makes a difference when you're a governor. You can change your mind. Ted could change his mind. Marco could change his mind. It's perfectly legal in this country to change your mind. But when you're a governor, you have to admit it. You can't hide behind parliamentary tricks. That's the difference, and that's the kind of leader we need in the White House. Stop the Washington Bull, and let's get things done.
Let's get to a YouTube question. This is a question from a YouTube creator with over 2 million subscribers. Watch.
I'm Dulce Candy, a YouTube creator who immigrated to the United States from Mexico when I was a little girl. Since then, I am proud to say that I served in the armed forces in Iraq, became a citizen, and I am now an entrepreneur. There are many immigrants who contribute positively to the American economy, but some of the comments in the campaign make us question our place in this country. If America does not seem like a welcoming place for immigrant entrepreneurs, will the American economy suffer?
Dr. Carson, that one's for you.
Oh, okay, great. Well, as I said before, we are a land of immigrants, but we have to be intelligent about the way that we form our immigration policies. And that's one of the reasons that I have called on us to declare war on the Islamic State, because we need to reorient our immigration policies and our visa policies for people who are coming into this country, because there are many people out there who want to destroy us. Now, I recognize that the vast majority of people coming in here probably are not those kinds of people, but that's not good enough. If you've got 10 people coming to your house and you know one of them is a terrorist, you're probably going to keep them all out. You know, we probably have to figure out a way to make sure that we keep America safe.
That beautiful young woman who's an entrepreneur who served in the military, first of all, is deserving of our respect for service in the military and the fact that she's an entrepreneur. And we should be a welcoming nation. Our identity is not based on race or ethnicity. It's based on a set of shared values. That's American citizenship. And Dulce Candy, pretty cool name actually, that is now an entrepreneur of the YouTube, is part of that American experience, and we should celebrate it as conservatives. That's what we believe in. You can deal with the threat of terror and also recognize that this country should be aspirational across the board.
And I think that's the false choice. That's the false choice in this whole debate about immigration. Of course, we're going to be a nation of immigrants. By the way, no nation on earth is more generous than America is. Every single year, close to 1 million people immigrate to the United States legally. There's no nation on earth that comes close to that number. I think the only argument is, aren't we in a sovereign country? Are we not allowed to choose who comes in, when they come in, and how they come in? And that's not what's happening now. I think the other problem is we have a legal immigration system that's outdated. It is primarily based on whether you have family members living here. In the 21st century, it has to be more of a merit-based system. And that is why our legal immigration system is in need of modernization. And we will always celebrate legal immigration like Dulce's great.
All right, we're moving on.
Gentlemen, we're going to turn now to what we call electability issues that you're either facing in the primaries or issues that you're certainly going to face in a general election. So you may not be altogether unhappy if you're not included in this round. Senator Cruz, you pride yourself on standing up to the DC cartel, but as we've seen to a certain degree tonight, there's a price for standing up to the DC cartel. 13 Republican senators have endorsed other candidates. None have endorsed you. You twice last year, you asked for a colleague to second a motion, a routine courtesy, on the Senate floor, and no senator would do it. Top GOP officials worry that if you're at the top of the ticket, some officials, that not only will you lose the White House, but it will tank the ticket all the way down the line. Question is, does your style sometimes get in the way of your ability to get things done, sir?
Well, Chris, you are exactly right that I am not the candidate of career politicians in Washington. And I'll tell you, the endorsements that I am proud of are the over 200,000 volunteers across this country who have signed up to volunteer for our campaign. The endorsements that I am proud of are leading conservatives like Iowa's own Congressman Steve King, who is a national co-chairman of my campaign. The endorsements that I'm proud of are conservative leaders like Dr. James Dobson, and over 700,000 contributions nationwide. People going to our website, tedcruz.org. This is a grassroots campaign. And you know, when I ran for Senate in Texas, I told the people of Texas that I'm not going there to go along to get along. Washington is broken. And the people I have been accountable to every single day in the Senate are the 27 million Texans who I represent. And I made a promise to them that I make to you today, which is if I am elected, every single day I will do two things: tell the truth and do what I said I would do. Thank you.
Governor Bush, poll after poll shows you running among the worst in your party against Hillary Clinton. Even Mitt Romney said that a Bush v. Clinton head-to-head would be too easy for the Democrats. Yet still, you and the super PAC supporting you continue to blanket the airwaves with cutting ads, not against Mrs. Clinton, but against your fellow Republicans, especially Senator Rubio. Do these attacks do more harm than good by targeting those candidates who appear to have the best chance of defeating Mrs. Clinton?
First of all, I've seen polls where I'm beating Hillary Clinton pretty regularly, and I believe I can because I have a proven record. A record of accomplishment, a record of cutting taxes, of shrinking the government, of reforming education, of challenging the status quo, eliminating career civil service protections, shrinking the government workforce by 11%, but leading the nation in job growth. That's the record of accomplishment that should be taken to Hillary Clinton, who has no record of accomplishment. So I'm confident if I win this nomination, I will aggressively go against her and beat her. As it relates to the super PACs, I have no control over that. And this is beanbag compared to what the Clinton hit machine is going to do to the Republican nominee. The simple fact is we all have a record. It all will be scrutinized. There's give and take. It's called politics. And that's the way it is. I'm running hard, and I believe I'll be the Republican nominee, and I'll be the one best suited to beat Hillary Clinton, who should not be president of the United States.
Senator Rubio, first, before I ask you a question, any response to Governor Bush?
Well, I believe and I know that if Iowa helps make me the Republican nominee, I will defeat Hillary Clinton. Hillary doesn't want to run against me, but I cannot wait to run against her. And I cannot wait to earn the opportunity to do it because she cannot be the president of the United States. She wants to put Barack Obama on the Supreme Court of the United States of America. She said that here in Iowa just 2 days ago. That would be a disaster for this country. So I hope and pray and cannot wait until this state and others give me an opportunity to serve this party as its nominee because I will defeat Hillary Clinton.
Now, let's talk about electability, Senator. Time magazine once called you the Republican savior. Rush Limbaugh and others said you likely will be president someday. But if you look at the recent average of polls in your home state of Florida, you're in third, trailing Donald Trump by 24 points. If the people who know you best have you there, why should the rest of the country elect you?
Well, let me be clear about one thing. There's only one savior, and it's not me. It's Jesus Christ who came down to earth and died for our sins. And I've always made that clear about that cover story. As far as the polls are concerned, Iowa, on Monday night, you're going to go to a caucus site, and you'll be the first Americans that vote in this election. You will be the first Americans that get to answer the fundamental question, what comes next for this country after 7 disastrous years of Barack Obama? And let me tell you what the answer better not be. It better not be Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. I think Bernie Sanders is a good candidate for president of Sweden. We don't want to be Sweden. We want to be the United States of America. And Hillary Clinton is disqualified from being the commander-in-chief of the United States. In fact, one of her first acts as president may very well be to pardon herself. Because Hillary Clinton stored classified information on her private server, and Hillary Clinton lied to the families of those 4 brave Americans who lost their life in Benghazi. And anyone who lies to the families of Americans who have died in the service of this country can never be commander-in-chief of the United States.
Governor Christie, 2 of your former top aides go on trial in May for fraud and conspiracy in the Bridgegate case, the politically motivated closure of lanes to the George Washington Bridge. Another former aide who has already pleaded guilty and will likely testify for the government, as you know, says that you knew about this whole deal. Can the GOP take the chance of nominating you with this scandal still out there, sir?
Sure, because there's been 3 different investigations and proven that I knew nothing. And the fact is that what I did do from the beginning, Chris, as soon as I found out about it, I fired the people who were responsible. And that's what you expected from a leader. And I'll tell you something else. I inherited a state in New Jersey that was downtrodden and beaten by liberal democratic policies, high taxation, high regulation. And this year in 2015, New Jersey's had the best year of job growth that our state has ever had in the last 15 years. That's because we put conservative policies in place. And I'll tell you one other thing. You know why the Republican Party will want to take a chance on me? Because they know that Hillary Clinton will never be prosecuted by this Justice Department, and they're going to want to put a former federal prosecutor on the stage to prosecute her next September. And there is no one on this stage better prepared to prosecute the case against Hillary Clinton than I am. I will be ready. I will take her on. And when I take her on, I guarantee you one thing, she will never get within 10 miles of the White House. The days for the Clintons in public housing are over.
Much more to come, including where the candidates stand on foreign policy. And once again, you can go to Google.com or open your Google search app and search Fox News Debate to vote on which candidate you think is winning the debate tonight. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to Tim's Weather Center News. You are watching Fox News Debate 2016. It'll be back shortly. I am your commercial break, so please stand by. But very much this Fox debate is pretty interesting. And I want to thank all of you for the support and watching Tim's Weather Center News, the debate. We are live on YouTube. More information, you can go to www.timsweathercenternews.com. Also on Facebook, you can watch the debate, or you can watch Tim's Weather Center News, the debate, on my website at www.timsweathercenternews.com. And don't forget, you can get a recap of everything that has happened the next time Tim's Weather Center News is on. But for now, we are still waiting for Fox News Debate to come back on, so please stand by. Again, more information on Tim's Weather Center News, the debate, you can go to www.timsweathercenternews.com. And also, please tell me on my Facebook page and in the comments of my YouTube, tell me who do you think is winning this debate. And also, tell me who do you think will be the next president of the United States of America. Again, the Fox News Debate here live on Tim's Weather Center News. Here live on Tim's Weather Center News, the debate should be coming back very shortly. And the debate is happening in Iowa. In fact, Donald Trump had a speech in Iowa earlier this week, and he's not on the debate because he's doing a fundraiser for an organization. He tried to get the Fox News Network to do a fundraiser of the debate as well, but they said no, so he said goodbye, pretty much. But the debate live here on Tim's Weather Center News, the debate will be right back in minutes. Welcome back to the debate.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's get back to the questions. Chris?
Gentlemen, almost 60% of Republican caucus goers identify themselves as evangelicals, so I'd like to spend a few minutes exploring social issues. Governor Kasich, you talk a good deal about your faith. In fact, you say it played a role in your decision to expand Medicaid, and you say that when you meet St. Peter at the pearly gates, he's going to ask what you did for the poor, not what you did to keep government small. Senator Cruz is on the opposite side of this issue from you, so does that mean that you're getting in and he isn't?
No, Chris, here's what happened with Medicaid in my state. We took the growth of Medicaid from over 10% in my second budget to 2.5% without cutting off one person or cutting one benefit, because we innovated the government, and now mom and dad can stay in their own home rather than being forced into a nursing home. And then we decided we could bring 14 billion of our money. I mean, Washington doesn't have any money; it was our money. We brought them back to tend to the mentally ill, because I don't think they ought to live in prison or live under a bridge. To treat the drug addicted so they're not in and out the door policy out of the prisons, and to help the working poor so they don't live in emergency rooms. How's it worked? Well, we have treated the drug addicted in our prisons, and we released them into the community, and our recidivism rate is less than 20%. That's basically bordering on a miracle because of our great prison director. The mentally ill, they've been stepped on for too long in this society, and we are beginning to treat them. In terms of my faith, look, all I say is that when I study scripture, I know that people who live in the shadows need to have a chance. But I'm not deciding that anybody's got to make these decisions the way that I do on the basis of what I do, but what I will tell you this. The time has come to stop ignoring the mentally ill in this country and begin to treat them and get them on their feet, along, of course, with treating the drug addicted. Because we don't want them in and out. We don't want them in and out of the prisons. Give people a chance. We talked about criminal justice reform. We've enacted it in our state. Look, the conservative message is economic growth. And along with economic growth goes opportunity for everybody in America. Everybody ought to have a chance to be able to rise to their God-given purpose. And that is what we have done in Ohio. We're running surpluses. We're up 400,000 jobs. And guess what? The formula is working. I suggest people take a look at it. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we had a case study on religious liberty just this last summer. A county clerk in Kentucky named Kim Davis refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples after the Supreme Court ruling, saying that it violated her religious beliefs. Governor Christie, you said that she must follow the law or be moved to another job that would be in keeping with her conscience. But some conservatives say that that violates her religious liberty.
Now, what I said, Chris, was that the law needs to be followed and that someone in that office has to do their job. So if Ms. Davis wanted to step aside and get rid of her ability to be able to do that, there should be someone else in that office who didn't violate their conscience so they could follow the law of the state of Kentucky. I never said that Ms. Davis should either lose her job or that she had to do it. But what I did say was that the person who came in for the license needed to get it. And so if there's someone in that organization, and it turns out there was, who was willing to be able to do that, that's what we should do. But just as importantly, and I agree with what John said, we all have our own individual interpretations of our faith. And here's the problem with what's going on around the world. The radical Islamic jihadists, what they want to do is impose their faith upon each and every one of us. Every one of us. And the reason why this war against them is so important is that very basis of religious liberty. They want everyone in this country to follow their religious beliefs the way they do. They do not want us to exercise religious liberty. That's why, as commander-in-chief, I will take on ISIS, not only because it keeps us safe, but because it allows us to absolutely conduct our religious affairs the way we find in our heart and in our souls. As a Catholic, that's what I want to do. And no matter what your faith is, that's what I want you to be able to do.
Thank you, sir. Senator Rubio, during the last debate, you said Governor Christie had changed his position and his mind on gun control, on Common Core, and backing President Obama's nomination of Sotomayor to the Supreme Court. He said you're wrong on the facts and you can't, quote, slime your way to the White House. I assume in the last 2 weeks you've done some fact checking. You want to take anything back?
Yeah, I would encourage people to go on my website, marcorubio.com. We'll put all the facts up there so people can see it for themselves. But you just asked a very fundamental question about the role of faith in our country. And I think this is an important question. I think if you do not understand that our Judeo-Christian values are one of the reasons why America is such a special country, you don't understand our history. You see, why are we one of the most generous people in the world? No, the most generous people in the world. But why do Americans contribute millions of dollars to charity? It is not because of the tax write-off. It is because in this nation, we are influenced by Judeo-Christian values that teach us to care for the less fortunate, to reach out to the needy, to love our neighbor. This is what's made our nation so special. And you should hope that our next president is someone that is influenced by their faith. Because if your faith causes you to care for the less fortunate, it is something you want to see in your public figures. And when I'm president, I can tell you this, my faith will not just influence the way I'll govern as president, it will influence the way I live my life. Because in the end, my goal is not simply to live on this earth for 80 years, but to live in eternity with my Creator. And I will always allow my faith to influence everything I do.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Paul, in May on the campaign trail, you said you didn't get into politics to fight about abortion. You said you were more concerned about the national debt. Your answer is to turn abortion back to the states the way it was before Roe v. Wade. Does that mean that if a liberal state, let's say, wants to make abortion legal, that you're okay with that? And what do you say to conservative voters who believe deeply that abortion is murder?
You know, I think abortion is always wrong. I've supported a variety of solutions, both state as well as federal. In fact, just last week, I introduced the Life at Conception Act, which would say that the 14th Amendment would defend an individual, even in the womb. But I think on the broader question of religion and politics, you know, I think liberty itself requires a virtue, requires a virtuous people. In fact, Washington said that democracy requires a virtuous people. Os Guinness, the theologian, said that liberty requires restraint, but the only restraint consistent with liberty is self-restraint. There's a lot packed into that statement, but the bottom line is we must have virtue. We must have a religious bearing as a nation. But government's not always going to save us, and it's not always going to come from government. But if we don't know right and wrong, I think we have lost our way. I think we come unmoored, and I think without the religious foundation that guides us all, I think we have a great risk of going horribly in the wrong direction.
Sir, just 30 seconds to answer my specific. Just 30 seconds to answer my specific question. Do you favor the idea that abortion should be a states' rights issue, and if a liberal state wants to make it legal, that's their choice? Yes or no?
No, both a federal and a state approach. I have said that we could leave it to the states, but I've also introduced a federal solution as well. So the federal solution would be the Life at Conception Act, which is an act that would federalize the issue. But I've also said for the most part, these issues would be left back to the states. So there might be an occasion if we did overturn Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade nationalized the issue. If you actually had the court reverse Roe v. Wade, it would become a state issue once again. I think it would be better the less abortions we have. So the more states that we had that made abortion illegal, the better as far as trying to save and preserve lives.
Thank you, sir.
Gentlemen, I'd like to ask a few questions about foreign policy broadly. Dr. Carson, many experts believe Russian leader Vladimir Putin has greater ideas, bigger designs for the region beyond Russia's actions inside Ukraine. Fast forward to February 2017, and it is President Carson and Russian under-reformed commandos cross the Estonian border, and they occupy a city in Estonia. Estonia, a member of NATO, essentially invokes Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. What do you do?
Well, first of all, recognize that Vladimir Putin is an opportunist, and he's a bully, and we have to face him down. And I would, first of all, face him down in that whole region, the whole Baltic region. I think we need to put in some armored brigades there. We only have one or two. We need much more than that. We need to be doing military exercises in not only Estonia, but Latvia and Lithuania. They're terrified by the saber rattling. I think we ought to put in our missile defense system. I think we ought to give Ukraine offensive weapons. And I think we ought to fight them on the economic basis, because Putin is a one-horse country, oil and energy. And we ought to fight them on that level. We ought to be helping in terms of the technology for fracking, keeping the price low, quite frankly, because that's what's keeping him contained. So, yes, I absolutely would go in if he attacked. I think on Article 5 of NATO, we would definitely protect all of our allies.
Gentlemen, you've all said that the Iran nuclear deal is a bad one. Senator Rubio, you're among the candidates who've said that you would tear it up on day one. But as you know, Iran has already received tens of millions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars in this deal, and has quickly reestablished ties economically with Europe. The major concessions, in other words, are up front in this deal. So should you win, by the time you take office, the remaining parts of the deal would be the constraints on Iran. So why blow up those constraints constraints on day one, letting Iran off the hook?
Well, let me first describe Iran, because they're not just a normal nation state, and we have no quarrel with the Iranian people. But the Iranian leader, their supreme leader, is a radical Shia cleric who has an apocalyptic vision of the future. He views himself not simply as the leader of Iran, but as the leader of all Muslims, all Shia Muslims on the planet. And they have a desire not simply to conquer the Middle East and to become the dominant power in that region, but ultimately to be able to hold America hostage. That is why they're building right now and developing long-range missiles capable of reaching the United States. And that is why they're going to use those $100 billion to expand their conventional capabilities and to one day buy or build a nuclear weapon. When I am president of the United States, on my first day in office, we are canceling the deal with Iran, and nations will have to make a choice. They can do business with Iran, or they can do business with America, and I am very confident they're going to choose America before they choose the Iranian economy.
Governor Kasich, you've said that Marco Rubio is wrong, that Senator Rubio is wrong with tearing it up on day one.
Look, we don't know what's going to happen in 10 months. And if I were president of the United States right now, I'd be lining up our allies to say that if one crossed T or one dotted I does not occur, they violate the agreement, we slap back on sanctions. We can slap on sanctions alone on day one, but it's not going to be anywhere near as effective. But the president needs to be laying the groundwork right now for the ability to slap those sanctions back on worldwide. And I'll tell you what I'm worried about. I'm worried about money. You read about all the companies now that are doing business, about to do business in Iran. And if we don't get this settled now with other countries in the world about sanctions, then Iran could violate that agreement, and we're the only ones putting the sanctions on. We need to move aggressively now. But I would say this to you, Brett. Number one, if they violate it, we need to move against them. And number two, if we find out they're developing a nuclear weapon and we know how to get to it, we're going to go take it out. That is what we have to do. We cannot let things get farther down the road like we did with North Korea.
But Governor Kasich, you know that the most powerful sanctions are the multilateral ones.
That's right.
And these European countries are already reestablishing these ties.
I know, Brett.
They don't want.
But Brett, here's the problem. You take a look at Belgium. I talked to a diplomat from Belgium. I said, how's it going? He said, we have the military in the streets right now. We never dreamt we'd ever see it. See, I think there is an opportunity to bring the world together. The Turks are being threatened. We know about the French. We know about the Belgians. We know about the Brits. Everybody is under fire and under attack, and we have to stand together as an alliance. So actually, the opportunity is there, because of the threat to all of these countries, to bring all of us together and say there is something more important than money. It is the future of the world and the future of our children and grandchildren. That's the kind of leadership this country needs, and it has not been in effect during the administration of Barack Obama. And that's only the beginning of the failures that they have committed, not only in the Middle East, but all over the world, including Russia and China.
Governor, thank you. Governor Christie, Libya is the newest base for ISIS. Just today, Defense Secretary Ashton Carter said ISIS is consolidating their footprint there and also setting up training facilities. So if you were president, would you deploy U.S. troops to Libya to take out ISIS there?
Brett, let me tell you, this is another one of those places where Hillary Clinton has so much to answer for and why she is completely unqualified to be commander-in-chief. In a previous Democratic debate, Martha Raddatz 3 times asked Hillary Clinton about the failure in Libya, a policy that she took credit for, and said, what is your measure of responsibility, Madam Secretary, for the failure in Libya? 3 times she refused to answer the question because she refuses to be held accountable for anything that goes wrong. If it had gone right, believe me, she would have been running around to be able to take credit for it. Here's what I do. This is about the bigger, broader war against ISIS. We need to bring together our European and our Sunni Arab allies, and we need to develop a strategy together to take on ISIS every place that it is around the world, so that together, all of us can take ISIS out, destroy it, and then move on to come back to our country, protect our homeland security, and make sure that the American people are safe. As President of the United States, that is exactly what I will do.
Thank you, Governor.
We're not finished yet. More to come for the presidential debate live from Des Moines, Iowa next. And remember, to see how the campaigns are responding to the debate in real time, go to google.com or open your Google search app and search Fox News Debate, and please stay with us.
And welcome back to Tim Sweater Center News. live on YouTube and on my website at www.timsweathercenternews.com. You are watching Tim's Weather Center News, the debate 2016 debate, people. A new president is being pretty much. We need a new president, people, and that's why you're watching the debate. And hopefully, since you guys are watching the debate, hopefully it'll help you choose our next president of the United States of America. And this debate is brought to you by Fox News Debate live in Iowa. Right now they are on a commercial break, and that is why you get to hear my beautiful voice talking to you. And ladies, don't forget, if you want to get to know Tim Secor, you can contact him at 480-938-0798. Again, all the contact information is on my website at www.timsweathercenternews.com. It has been a long day, people, so let's stand by for the debate. It should not be on much longer, but we will definitely cover it live for you. They are normally about 2 hours long, so I will stay coming to you live. And I want to thank all the news networks for offering me to come down. It's super, super amazing. In the history of Tim Secor and Tim's Weather Center News, I've been at Channel 10, and I've even been on 12, and I'm even going to be getting a tour of ABC 15 News. So thank you all for all the support, and thank you for continuing watching Tim's Weather Center News, and thank you for watching Tim's Weather Center News. The debate will continue in a matter of minutes. But right now, I want to give some shout-outs to my Uncle Johnny. Oh, never mind. Back to the debate in Iowa.
Welcome back to Des Moines. Let's resume the debate.
Senator Paul, you have suggested that former President Bill Clinton's history with women is fair game in this campaign. How do you answer those who say you don't hold the sins of the husband against the wife?
You know, I've never really brought this up unless asked the question, but I have responded to the question. I don't blame Hillary Clinton at all for this. I don't think she's responsible for his behavior. But I do think that her position as promoting women's rights and fairness to women in the workplace, that if what Bill Clinton did, any CEO in our country did with an intern, with a 22-year-old, 21-year-old intern in their office, they would be fired. They would never be hired again. Fired, never hired again, and probably shunned in their community. And the thing is, she can't be a champion of women's rights at the same time she's got this that is always lurking out there, this type of behavior. So it is difficult.
Of her husband's.
Yeah, but I combine this also with the millions upon millions of dollars they've taken from regimes in the Middle East who treat women like cattle.
We have another question from one of YouTube's top creators. Here it is.
I'm Nabella Noor. I'm a Muslim American born and raised in the U.S. who creates beauty and lifestyle videos on YouTube. In 2015, the number of hate crimes against Muslims in the U.S. has tripled. And on social media, where I spend a lot of time, I've seen many attacks directed towards fellow Muslims. This culture of hatred is only driving ISIS to radicalize, recruit, and incite violence. As president, what would you do to address this toxic climate and promote increased tolerance in the United States?
Governor Bush, how do you answer, Nabila?
Well, first of all, I think it's important that when we're running for the highest office in the land, that we recognize that we're living in dangerous times and we have to be serious about it, that our words have consequences. Donald Trump, for example, I'm glad I mentioned his name again, just if anybody was missing him. Mr. Trump believed that in reaction to people's fears that we should ban all Muslims. Well, that creates an environment that's toxic in our own country. Nabella's a rising entrepreneur. She wants to pursue the American dream. She's an American citizen. She should not feel uncomfortable about her citizenship. She's not the threat. The threat is Islamic terrorism. We need to focus our energies there, not these broad blanket kind of statements that will make it harder for us to deal with ISIS. We need to deal with ISIS in the caliphate. We need a strategy to destroy ISIS there. You can't do that without the cooperation of the Muslim world because they're as threatened as we are. And so I think it's important for us to be careful about the language we use, which is why I've been critical of Donald Trump, disparaging women, disparaging Hispanics. That's not a sign of strength. Making fun of disabled people, we're never going to win elections if we don't have a more broader, unifying message.
Thank you. Senator Cruz changed the subject. You called for an end to the renewable fuel standards, which mandate that refineries blend biofuels, including ethanol, into gasoline. As you well know, ethanol is a big industry in this state, $10 billion a year. Last week, Terry Branstad, the popular governor of Iowa, who is in the hall tonight, said that you're micro by big oil and that Iowa voters would be making a mistake supporting you. Why should those voters side with you over the sixth-term governor of this state, sir?
Well, Chris, I'm glad to discuss my views on ethanol and energy. I think God has blessed this country with enormous natural resources, and we should pursue all of the above. We should be developing oil and gas and coal and nuclear and wind and solar and ethanol and biofuels. But I don't believe that Washington should be picking winners and losers, and I think there should be no mandates and no subsidies whatsoever. And indeed, my tax plan that I've introduced, it's available on our website. It's a simple flat tax for everyone. It'll produce enormous economic growth, and it eliminates every mandate, every subsidy, so there's no subsidies for oil and gas, no subsidies for anyone. Now, it is true that there are a bunch of lobbyists and a bunch of Democrats in this state spending millions of dollars trying to convince the people of Iowa that I somehow oppose ethanol. It's not true. I have introduced legislation that would phase out the ethanol mandate over 5 years, but that is in the context of having no mandates whatsoever for anyone. And I would note there's a much more important government regulation to ethanol, and that's the EPA's blend wall that makes it illegal to sell mid-level blends of ethanol and gasoline. I will tear down the EPA's blend wall, which will enable ethanol to expand its market share by up to 60%, all without mandates, all without any government mandates whatsoever through the marketplace. And I'll note finally, Chris, there is a reason that Iowa's Congressman Steve King, perhaps the fiercest defender of farmers in this state, is chairing my campaign because he understands that I'm committed to a fair and level playing field for every energy source without lobbyists and without Washington picking winners and losers.
Dr. President, I'd like to ask you about exactly that issue. Where are you on the mandatory ethanol standard? And precisely this question, should government be in the business of picking winners and losers, or should it be left to the marketplace?
Well, as anyone knows who's been listening to me, I'm very much against the government being involved in every aspect of our lives. Last year there was an additional 81,000 pages of government regulations. If you stack that up, it would be a 3-story building. This is absolutely absurd. And they've insinuated themselves into everything. Now, as far as the renewable fuel standard is concerned, certain promises were made, certain government contracts were issued, which extend all the way into the year 2022. And I believe that it's probably unfair to withdraw the rug because people have invested money, people have invested a lot of energy into that. But, we are blessed with tremendous energy in this nation. And we need to be talking about new sources of energy. 70% of our population lives bi-coastally. What about hydroelectric power? We can develop that. You know, we have so much natural gas now, and we can liquefy it, and we can transfer it across the seas. We can make Europe dependent on us instead of Putin putting back in this little box where it belongs. Those are the kinds of things that we ought to be doing, and, you know, take advantage of the tremendous opportunities and energy that God has given us, not get involved in these little petty arguments, and we can get a lot of them out if we get the government out of our lives.
Doctor, thank you.
Coming up, closing statements from the candidates as our debate continues live from Des Moines, Iowa.
Welcome back to Tim's Weather Center News, live in Mesa, Arizona. You are watching Tim's Weather Center News, the debate 2016. In fact, you can watch the debate on my YouTube channel. Also on my website at www.timsweathercenternews.com. The Fox News Debate 2016 will be back in a moment. But for now, I've got some shout outs for y'all. Larea Alberto, hello. Thank you for being a great friend. I heard that you are moving high schools and moving cities. I hope you have a great time at your new high school, and we will miss you at Mesa High. Shelby, I want to give you and your daughters a shout out. Shelby and Brooklyn and Briley, I want to give a shout out to Uncle Johnny and his girlfriend. They are both located in Joplin, Missouri. You guys are great. You guys are great support of Tim's Weather Center News. And the rest of you, I also want to thank you. And we actually broadcast worldwide, which means in the United States and out of the United States. I'm talking about Cuba, Russia, Alaska, California, Florida, all 50 states in California, all 50 states in the United States and out of the United States as well. We are just getting bigger and better, and we will never go away. Also, don't forget, new Darius Catch is coming this April to Discovery Channel. It airs on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. And it's going to be a great season. And I'll have more on Darius Catch when it gets closer. And by the way, Miss Folk Schools and Gilbert Schools, there's only 4 months left of school. And again, if you missed the Sheriff Joe speech about Donald Trump and his endorsement, I will have that on YouTube later on this week. It was supposed to be already uploaded, but it is not uploaded. The upload failed, and I have to upload it again. But Tim's Weather Center News is still going to be live till this debate is over. And it should be coming back on any minute. So thank you guys for tuning in Tim's Weather Center News, the debate 2016 on January 28th, and we'll talk more. But here is the debate.
Welcome back, everybody. And now it is time for closing statements. The candidates each get 30 seconds, and we begin with Kentucky Senator Rand Paul.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be back. I'm an eye surgeon from Bowling Green, Kentucky. I miss doing eye surgery, still get to do a little bit, did a couple of cataract surgeries over Christmas holidays, got to go to Haiti last year. I've gotten to do some incredible things, got to be on the floor of the Senate. It's just been amazing to me. But the thing that is most important to me and caused me to run for office is I'm worried about the country and how much debt we're adding. And I am the one true fiscal conservative who will look at all spending, and that's the only way we'll ever balance our budget. Thank you.
Governor Kasich.
biggest national security issues is the world looks at us sometime and we look at each other and say, why can't we solve problems? I've got news for you. We can. We can, in fact, create jobs and provide job security. We can create a situation where wages begin to rise. We can create a situation for our children to be able to get a decent job to pay down their college debt. We can reassume our role in the world. But all this has to come together when we have a positive attitude, an optimistic approach, an ability for us to set the tune as conservatives, but to invite other people in to be part of that orchestra. You see, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, I'm an optimist because I've seen so many things get accomplished in my lifetime, and we can do it again together, all of us, to strengthen this country. Work together. Thank you.
New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
On September 11th, my wife was 2 blocks from the World Trade Center. When those buildings came down, she was trapped in her building, and I didn't hear from her for over 6 hours. We had 3 children, 8, 5, and 1, and I had to confront the possibility of being a single parent. Terrorism in this country scares everyone. And the fact is we need a commander-in-chief who not only understands how to protect us, but feels in here what it means to face the possibility of loss. I've faced it. I've prosecuted terrorists. I have made the decisions that need to be made as a governor to protect us, and as President of the United States, no one will keep this country safer than I will.
Thank you, Governor.
From Florida Governor Jeb Bush. Governor?
We desperately need a conservative leader as President of the United States. I have a proven record as governor of the state of Florida as a conservative leader. And I also had detailed plans to fix the mess in Washington, D.C. As president, I will restore and rebuild our military, restore the alliances, and keep us safe. And as our party's nominee, I will defeat Hillary Clinton in November. I ask for your support on the caucuses come Monday night, and I will make you proud as our party's nominee. Thank you very much.
Dr. Ben Carson.
I want to thank the people of Iowa for being so welcoming to me. Please think of our founding fathers as you listen. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the benefits of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Folks, it's not too late. Enough said.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio. The Bible commands us to let our light shine on the world. For over 200 years, America's light's been shining on the world, and the world has never been the same again. But now that light is dimming a little after 7 years of Barack Obama. And that's why Monday night, what will happen here in Iowa is so important. I'm asking you for your vote. Caucus for me on Monday night, because if I'm your nominee, I will unite this party and I will defeat Hillary Clinton. And when I'm president, America's light will shine again, and the 21st century will be a new American century.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator?
93 hours. The media noise will soon be over, and it's now for the men and women of Iowa to decide. Our country's in crisis. We're worried the future of our children, and we've been burned over and over again. The central question in this race is trust. Who do you know will kill the terrorists, defend the Constitution, and repeal Obamacare? Who do you know will stop amnesty and secure the borders? Who do you know will defend life, marriage, and religious liberty? Examine our records, pray on it, and I would be honored if you and your family would come caucus for us on Monday night.
Gentlemen, thank you all so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it greatly. And that does it for the 7th Republican primary debate of the 2016 presidential race. But we're not done. The Kelly File starts in a moment. Guess who's going to be there? Senator Ted Cruz.
And don't forget, after all the talk, the first voting of the 2016 campaign happens in just 4 days. The first Americans to vote. The Iowa caucuses are Monday, and Fox News will have complete coverage.
And we have you covered from Iowa all the way to the conventions and on to the general election. Thanks again for joining us. For all of us here in Des Moines, have a great evening.
And thank you all for joining Tim's Weather Center News for this debate. Everyone here at Tim's Weather Center appreciate you all for joining Tim's Weather Center News, the debate. We could not do it without your support. And thank you guys again for joining Tim's Weather Center News, the debate 2016. We will keep you all up to date on the next debate. As soon as we know when the next one is, I will be live, no matter what time it is, here on YouTube and on my website. More information, go to www.timsweathercenternews.com. Have a great night, and God bless America.